There are things a war does that the headlines don't always capture. The deaths, yes. The missiles, the politics, the diplomacy, all of it reported, debated, analyzed. But underneath all of that, the Earth itself is absorbing something that doesn't stop when the ceasefire comes. On the 28th of February, 2026, U.S. and Israeli forces launched airstrikes on Iran. Within days, researchers at the Conflict and Environment Observatory, a UK-based organization that tracks the environmental costs of war, began logging what they were seeing from satellite imagery and social media. 300 incidents in less than 2 weeks. Oil depots on fire, steel plants burning, military bases hit releasing fuels, heavy metals, compounds with names most people have never had to say out loud. Dioxins, furans, PFAS. March 7th, overnight. Israel strikes 4 oil facilities in and around Tehran. Tehran, a city of 9 million people, larger than New York City. Tehran sits in a valley, backed by mountains. At night, the atmosphere pushes air pollution downward, trapping it over the city. It's a geography that has given Tehran some of the worst air quality in the world, even in peacetime. That night, the city filled with carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, soot, trace metals. The United Nations Environment Program confirmed the strikes through remote sensing. Its executive director, Injur Anderson, said what was happening was now being directly inhaled by people in Iran, including young children. We tend to think of pollution as something slow, something gradual. This was not gradual. And the question researchers are now asking is, where did all of it go? Into the soil, into the water table, into the groundwater beneath a city of 9 million people. Iran entered this war already in crisis. Years of drought, climate change, and mismanagement had left the country with critically low water supplies. The war didn't create a fragile system. It struck one that was already close to breaking. Move south to the Persian Gulf. This is one of the world's most important waterways. 5 of the 10 biggest oil-producing nations border it. Every day, tankers carrying billions of liters of crude oil move through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage barely 33 kilometers wide at its tightest point. By mid-March, Iran had moved to close the strait. More than 40 Iranian naval vessels had been damaged or sunk. Oil infrastructure at Bandar Abbas was hit. Port facilities were burning. And the Gulf itself, with its coral reefs, its seagrass beds, its fisheries that millions of people in the region depend on, sat directly in the path of all of it. Greenpeace Germany warned that a single major oil spill in the Persian Gulf could damage its marine habitat beyond repair. We have been here before. In the late 1980s, the Iran-Iraq War saw intensive targeting of oil tankers and oil platforms. Huge spills, fires that burned for months. In 1991, as Iraqi forces retreated from Kuwait, they set fire to around 700 oil wells. Those fires burned for months. The smoke was visible from space. The pollution poisoned soils and water that communities are still recovering from. The patterns are not new. What is new is the scale, the speed, and the density of population now living alongside the targets. Then there is the risk that no one wants to say out loud. Israel struck Iran's Natanz uranium enrichment facility repeatedly, and struck in the vicinity of the Bushehr nuclear reactor, Iran's only operating nuclear power plant. In response, Iran launched retaliatory missile attacks toward the 2 Israeli towns nearest to the Negev nuclear facility, the same facility where Israel stores what the world believes, but Israel will not confirm, are nuclear weapons. The International Atomic Energy Agency called on all sides to show restraint to prevent a nuclear accident. The World Health Organization said the conflict had reached a dangerous level. Nuclear safety doesn't only depend on direct hits. It can be compromised by power cuts, by disruption to cooling systems, by the loss of trained staff who have evacuated. The war's environmental footprint does not stop at the borders of the countries fighting it. The International Energy Agency estimated that the war caused global oil supply to drop by more than 10%. They described it as the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. In the first 2 weeks of fighting, the conflict generated more carbon dioxide than Iceland produces in an entire year. Countries across Europe began burning more coal to compensate for disrupted gas supplies. Japan relaxed emissions rules. India rationed fuel. And fertilizer exports from Iran, a major global supplier of urea, collapsed. In countries like Sudan and Somalia, where imported fertilizer is the difference between a harvest and a failure, that translated into rising food prices almost immediately. One of the most striking things about documenting this war's environmental damage is how hard it has been to document. Iran imposed an internet blackout in the weeks following the first strikes. Satellite imagery providers delayed releasing their data. The information that did emerge was selective, filtered through the priorities of governments and militaries. Researchers at CEOBS, tracking incidents using what they call the WISEN methodology, have been clear. Their picture is partial, incomplete. The true extent of damage, they say, will take years to fully understand. And already, environmental information is being used as a weapon of its own. Iran circulated a rapid assessment of the Tehran oil fires through its embassy network. A formal complaint of ecocide was submitted to the UN Secretary-General. All parties to this conflict appear to be targeting facilities that carry the highest environmental risk. There's a question that rarely gets asked during a war. Not who is winning, not when it will end. But after all of this, who cleans it up? The contaminated soils beneath Tehran, the polluted waters of the Gulf, the aquifers that might take decades to flush clean, the communities that will be breathing the legacy of these fires long after the fires themselves have gone out. International law has frameworks for this, principles that are supposed to protect the environment even during armed conflict. But enforcement, accountability, and funding for remediation are another